This is Larissa, a city in central Greece. Larissa is a city that's quietly challenging everything we know about urban design in this country. It's not flashy, it's not rich, but it's doing something most Greek cities still think it's impossible. Larissa is Greece's fourth most populated city, and it might as well be Greece's most walkable city in the making. Greece is a relatively car-centric country with a car ownership higher than the European average, about a car every 1.6 people. Specifically, the capital of Greece, Athens, has about 4.4 million private vehicles, a huge and expensive number that clogs up the entire city and rounds up bills. Just for comparison, there are only 3,000 registered passenger cars in the capital city of Amsterdam. But Larissa is different. Sure, most people living in Larissa do own a car, usually a light truck or SUV, because they often need to go to a farm or village. But they have made it a goal to significantly reduce car usage within the built-up area. As of now, Larissa has created some safe cycle lanes and more public transit infrastructure, and while there is definitely a lot of space for improvement, there will absolutely be improvement in the near future. One thing that stands out is that Larissa has made guidelines and published them about how they will make their future streets, and there's a lot of good stuff in here. Surprisingly, most Greek cities have some kind of guidelines that are suggesting new infrastructure to be built. Some of them, including ones in Larissa, specifically mark some streets to be renovated. But it's truly only Larissa that has moved to actually renovating more than one or two of them. As of right now, a district bus network is working, and there have been installed ramps for pedestrians and people with disabilities on most of the streets. Moreover, all new streets level the sidewalk with a street, so you rarely need to step down or roll down to the road in order to cross. The main focus of the program and the guidelines is cycling, which makes sense because it's the cheapest and easier way to turn people away from cars, although it's still quite underdeveloped. Even currently though, I happen to have an amazing cycling experience where any route I wanted to do within the city was easily accessible by bicycle and faster than the automobile. But as you get to the outer city, you'll find yourself having less routes to choose from if you want to continue cycling safely. One interesting aspect of the cycle network is that a big part of it doesn't have to do with dedicated bicycle lanes, mostly in the center, but also as you expand. This has to do with the extensive pedestrian area around Larissa city center. Sure, the pedestrian area is frequently interrupted by roads, but those are being reconstructed. They are blocked to through traffic, which makes pedestrian crossing more pleasant and encourages people to walk and shop alongside the street, which also makes shop owners stand the areas of construction, knowing that when it's finished, it will absolutely boost their profit. The pedestrian area is actually quite huge, and it doesn't specifically end or being treated like a restricted zone, but rather as a through route for pedestrians and cyclists. I believe this is the correct approach cities can take, because most Greek cities tend to think of pedestrian areas as destinations. The pedestrian area in Larissa is more than wide enough for cyclists to pass pedestrians, and the constant flow of cyclists make pedestrians go aside. There is also new street-level bicycle parking, even on old streets, that is being installed to accommodate the number of bicycles. Of course, underground garages have not been built, but those are rare outside of the Netherlands whatsoever. And I specifically found cool those underground garbage containers, along with the fact that the lady who helps empty them commutes from container to container by bicycle. Another interesting aspect of Larissa is its unique shape. If you look at it at first glance, it looks like a perfect circle, but it's not. The ring road does go around to get noise out of the city center and park, but the actual shape of the city is like this. Which means that this hilly pedestrian area, which looks like it's in the center, is actually at the edge of the city just before the suburbs begin. This plays an important role when renovating the city because unfortunately the municipality doesn't seem to have control over the suburbs, which is why you'll often see those sudden sidewalk transitions. The awkward shape of Larissa also makes it an amazing place to build the tram line. There are just so much possible destinations that even a single line could serve if the streets were cut off to car traffic, and there have been a lot of proposals for that. As of now, May 2025, no official documents have ever been signed, but the mayor and a couple advocates have highly advertised the idea over the years. And it makes total sense. A line could start from the central station, heading up to the center and continue onto the park of Larissa, also boosting the economy and profit of thousands of shops in the way, plus giving a faster alternative to the car. The entire route is about 5 kilometers, and it could also get rid of this road which currently divides the pedestrian area needing to serve passes. The route from end to end would take 14 minutes for 17 stops, which is 3 minutes slower than driving. But the average person wouldn't ride for 70 stops, they would ride for about 5 stops, in which case the tram is about 4 minutes faster than driving. The municipality is much in favor of this plan, but it's definitely a hard project that the municipality alone may not be able to complete. Asking the government's help won't really either help, since Larissa is already ashamed of the opportunities its rail network will have, and there is absolutely no reason for the station not to be a major interstate hub, since it's located in the middle of the country. Another sport where the city tries to manage alone is its bus network. In major cities like Athens and Thessaloniki, the government has given some new electric buses, for example, but they didn't consider Larissa big enough, so they didn't give it. Currently, the city is trying to fund buses to run to the suburbs and neighboring towns, with some quite good fuel buses, while they recently purchased a few new electric buses, although I didn't have the opportunity to catch any of those. Unfortunately, given the low to no funding at all, the entire bus network is managed by Larissas, which means that the schedule is extremely infrequent, with buses every 20 minutes per line. They have also tried to develop a smart card system for Larissa for 120 within the city and 160 for the suburbs. A notably expensive system, although you can buy 11 tickets for €12, which is a bit cheaper, or €2,000 per year if you're a student, which is actually a great deal. You used to only be able to purchase those tickets from bus stations around the city center, so it wasn't convenient if you were coming from the train station. But now the city started allowing to use your contactless payment card, and it's actually the first city in Greece to do that, even before Athens. Which, shows a lot of dedication. Another thing Larissa installed for Athens was those traffic light projectors that project the light color to the ground so phone users can know what color the light is. Pretty cool, yeah? So, given the low funding, it makes sense why a city like Larissa would want to focus on creating a cycling network. It's definitely the cheapest to construct and ridiculously cheap to maintain. It does push people out of the motor vehicles, and less asphalt needs to be maintained as well, which can fund public transit in the future. With the current guidelines, bicycle lanes are always expected to be placed along all roads in the city, and it's really good they have recognized the difference between a neighborhood access street and a distributor road. As of now, almost all roads in Larissa city center have a cycling infrastructure, but that doesn't come without an exception, in Kipru. As you can see, there is bicycle lane on both starts and ends of the road, but this part has been left blank to inspect whether a tram is ever going to be installed, in which case the entire portion is just going to be pedestrianized. So they just want to minimize spending money now if they're going to build something better afterwards. And there are already a lot of pedestrian streets parallel to this, which all connects to new streets with only bus and taxi traffic, so it's really not a big detour. Bicycle lanes are also placed in all new residential streets to allow cyclists to travel down the wrong way, and the design of the residential streets infers slow speeds. When there is space, a two-way bicycle lane may as well be added. This also offers a quieter alternative for trips that currently don't have a proper cycle route. All new residential streets heavily discourage through traffic, with a speed limit of only 20 km per hour. It's interesting to see how the city doesn't add model filters. Instead, they change the direction of the street every now and then, which makes drivers go by the distributor roads. Another thing that the city doesn't do is bicycle streets, Fietsstraat. Sure, Larissa itself is small enough to have bicycle networks inside its own city, but cities like Athens could definitely benefit from Fietsstraat. Now, most of the residential streets are still asphalt and sidewalk, since the main renovation focus is on the roads, not on the streets. Just that when a street needs to be rebuilt, it will be built to the latest design standards. So, from my point of view, almost all streets I saw within the city had smooth asphalt with narrow 2.8-meter lanes and quite decent sidewalks. My Airbnb, for example, was on this street and it was still perfectly safe to cycle both ways. So it seems like the really bad streets have already been reconstructed. Speaking of constructions and reconstruction, the reasons the construction is able to move so fast and cheaply also has to do with the constant construction. If you go on the driving tab in any map, you'll almost always find a street or road that's closed with traffic in order to be reconstructed. This ensures that there are standard jobs for construction workers and the city doesn't have to spend €500,000 on finding new people. One thing that really surprised me is that the city is very much in favor of even reconstructed existing bicycle lanes to bring them up to standard. The cycle lane, for example, is now being reconstructed to build a wider and smoother travel surface than before. All new roads and streets have no traffic lights. When a street meets a road, this pattern is used at the junction, which acts like a continuous sidewalk, and it's definitely something more than simple paint. The brick surface signals to the driver to slow down and give priority, because physics works better than science. And where two roads meet up together, a roundabout is used. This is currently the most up-to-date roundabout in the city, and I could not find guidelines on roundabouts anywhere. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, this part of the road doesn't have a cycle lane, so there truly isn't a prototype to see how future roundabouts with bicycle priority would look like. Of course, just like in Canada and the US, Greece has other excuses to why their cities are crappy. One extremely common excuse for cycling, for example, is that heat does not make it convenient to commute because you'll get sweaty, which is why Greece's most cycle-friendly city also happens to be the hottest city in the country. Another common excuse all around the world has to do with hills, which is why you'll see no pedestrian areas around hilly areas, like here in Larissa. And third, Greek people like to talk about culture. People often say that cycling is an adventurous way to get around, and Greeks do not like adventure, which is why the city has so many bicycles exactly from the time that they started building useful infra. And Larissa hasn't even completed half of the cycle and pedestrian network. Within the next 2 years, all of the cycling on main roads will take place in dedicated infrastructure. Well, in about 10 to 15 years from now, the entire city will be the first and best walkable city in Greece. Walkability isn't about spending billions in infrastructure, it's about stating that cars cannot rule your city and taking action about it. And Larissa is showing Greece how it's done. A better city is not an expensive dream, it's a decision.